Namaste. Sarve bhavantu sukhina. Let everyone be happy. Sarve santu niramaya. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu. Ma kaschid dukha bhag bhave. We are in the second step, how to think, speak, and act in our daily life. Because all the stress and the suffering mostly are the results of our action. So if our action is not clear, the problem remains. So if the thought, speech, and action are the three elements that we perform in our daily life, if our thought is clear and intent behind the thought is clear, and also the speech and the action, then the life changes. So after understanding our real nature, that is permanent peace, happiness, love, truth, and wisdom, we have to understand that how that real self expresses itself in daily life, in thought, speech, and action. So before understanding that, we should also know that why our thought, speech, and action causes the stress and suffering, the intent behind, or you can say the attachment and detachment, emotional dependence, anxiety, duality, and a conflict that supports our action. Why they support? We are in ignorance. So, what should support my thought, speech, and action in my daily life? And you might have seen in your daily life, your intent seems to be clear, say when you are talking to your son. And then what happens? The son gets upset. Son gets upset. See that why it happens? So it happens because the mind carries forward the past impressions of attachment and detachment in our daily life. What should we do? Listening and learning, contemplation and reflection on the principles, followed by the practice, should result in a sense of detachment. What is detachment? That you are not influenced by whatever is happening in the world. But how to do that? Now, again, you have to ask the question each and every time. Why not to be in, how not to be influenced and dictated by the outer situations, one, and the mental states. So what happens? The mind remains complete. The mind inside is not affected by that. Mind reveals the peace and happiness, love, truth, and wisdom. So, what is that knowledge which can help me? Look at the world outside. It is constantly in flux. Flux means it is constantly changing. No situation, condition, relations in our life remains the same. Your son says one day that I love you, mom, and the other says no, I don't like you, or I dislike you, or they react to situation, condition, relations do not remain same in the world outside. What should I do if they do not remain outside the same? That I should not worry about too much. I should not be I should not be attached to. Where is the meaning? That is the meaning of attachment. So once and detachment. So once you are clear, you are aware. Now you are going into the world with a different situation, people, and relationship with that sense of awareness that the world is totally unstable, unreliable. It may give you pain, it may give you the pleasure, so you don't take it. How you don't take it? Because you are aware, you are not emotionally dependent, you are not seeking peace and happiness from them. So that results into the sense of detachment. And once you continue to live in the state of detachment, it results into a dispassion. Where is that dispassion? You can see the mental mood swings, situations, in outer world of situations and conditions and relations at a distance. It is too far from you so that it does not touch you, and hence it is not dictating your inner self. So you are not frustrated, you are not hesitated, you do not fall into the emotional trap. So what our master says that the state of dispassion makes the mind steady. Tadsangatve nisasangatvam nisasangatve nirmohatvam nirmohatve nischaltatvam. That mind before, during, and after every action, every speech, every thinking is not at all influenced. It remains in peace before, during, and after. And that is the secret we have to learn and understand in this journey. So the step two means simply the karma yoga. One is action. Simply we perform the action casually and we get carried away by those emotions. That is known as the karma or means the action. And the karma yoga means you have added yoga in. And that yoga is the mental awareness. That yoga is the mental state. That yoga is an attitude. Not that attitude when we say, look at this guy, he is a big attitude. No, no, no. We are not talking of that negative. The attitude means the mental state is always present behind each thought, speech, and action, and that mental state is is of the nature of contribution, is of the nature of offering, is of the nature of gratefulness. Are you not grateful to the existence that you have sons and daughters? Tell me. So we continue to keep that state of gratefulness in all the situations without being affected by the outer situations and relations and also the mood swing. What happens? You're always happy. You're always happy. That is the job, that is the work we understand in the second step. Now we should understand clearly that who succeeds in the step 2, who is a seeker, and who does not succeed, who is a non seeker. Recently, this woman approached me. She said she is on a life mission. Now, see how you are a non seeker, even if you are extremely intelligent. So she booked a call, and then I started talking to her, and she said that I have been reading and watching the teachings of the Buddha and the Jesus. Very good. Then I studied and watched many other YouTube channels about the teachings of other great masters. I said, very good. Then she said that I'm more confused than before. can can anyone, by watching and listening and understanding the teachings of the Buddha and these great masters, be ever confused? Our mind says, no, I also get confused about it. That means I'm a non-seeker. So why and how I am a non-seeker? So I asked her, and I told her. You can say is a question and a statement. I said, was Buddha, Jesus, and other great masters were confused, and they have started teaching in that confusion, or they were enlightened? They realized their true nature. What is your answer? No, they are enlightened. So they are teaching what they have done in their life. You are confused and they are enlightened. So where is the problem? She looked at me and she said, problem is with me. I said, that is what I'm going to help you to remove that problem which is present in the mind in the form of ignorance and impurity. So we have to recognize whether we are a seeker or we are a non-seeker. That needs to be understood completely. And the second category of the people they are seekers who says, I want to know, I want to understand what led what led mind to a state of confusion and a conflict. Then that is what we are doing. So seeker's mind is always ready. Non-seeker's mind is not ready. Only between one is ready to act and realize, and other is not even ready. And if they act, they continue all their actions guided by the emotional dependence, duality, conflict, and confusion. So where is the problem? The problem of the change in attitude. One is a performer and a sect, another is a non-performer, no change in the attitude. I told you before, we discussed also before, one master who has two disciples. One disciple says, I know what is right as you taught me. He is saying to the master, pay attention. I know what is right as you taught me, but I am not able to follow what is right. I know what is wrong, and I am not able to keep away myself from it. I act as if I am directed by some unknown power that is seated in my heart that always pulls me to do the things wrongly and get into the anxiety. And that unknown power or that unknown force which pulls me to get upset, claim I am worthy of suffering, is the ignorance and the impurities of mind. And that ignorance and the impurities in the mind creates an attitude in the world to act and think. Even inside that impurity and ignorance is there. Even if I have a very positive attitude outside, I will be dictated by the outer situations, conditions in my life. Are you clear? And the other seeker of that master who says what he says, I don't know why I am confused. I get into anxiety, stress, duality, and a conflict, and that I want to know. I am totally committed to the knowledge. I will follow it until I change myself, the life change. So that way of thinking itself is more important as the first step. Remember what we are learning, that how to think, speak, and act in the world of relations, situations, people outside, with a specific attitude in the mind so that we we are too far from any form of the stress, duality, anxiety, and the conflict. Simply means how to perform, act. I think I told you this story, but I'm repeating very fast this story. That will help us to understand who gets into stress, anxiety, duality, and a conflict, and who remains free. That is the journey. So it happens that the two monks, one was the older monk and one was the younger monk. Older monk, keeps the many impressions of their past impressions of what happened in their life. Young is full of energy. They don't have too much of the thoughts. So the master asked both of them to go to a village and beg food for all of them. So they started the journey. They found a river on the bank, and at the bank of the river, they found a girl who seems to be scared to cross the river to go to the village. Both the monks would looked at the girl. The older monk, out from outside with a robe, orange-colored robe, he claimed that he is a seeker, but inside his mind, his attitude was different. And what was his attitude? His attitude, when he looked at the girl, he said, no, I have been trapped by the attachment and a strong liking of the opposite sex. Hence, I will not help her to cross the river. Attitude. The young monk also looked at the girl. His mind was empty. Attitude. So, because his mind was empty, the state of the kindness and the compassion awakened in his mind, and he said, no, let me help this girl to cross the river, whatever it be. So the attitude and the mind of these two monks were different. So then what happened? Now is the time. Based on the attitude will be converted into an action. So the young monk approached the girl and asked, can I help you? No, yes, yes, you can help me. So the young monk put the young girl on his shoulder. Along with the old monk, they both crossed the young girl thanked the young monk, and they were on their ways. Now the old and the young monk were walking towards the village. Half an hour has passed, and after half an hour, old monk was hesitated. Why he was hesitating? He was keeping that girl in her mind, in his mind. Well, even that is also okay. Attitude. We always carry, if something happens in our life, we carry the burden of those impressions and thoughts and feeling all the time. That is the cause of our anxiety and fear. Anyhow, this old monk told the younger one, you committed sin. Oh, what sin? Helping the young girl to cross the river is a sin? No, that is what my our masters told us. That don't mingle with the opposite sex. And you have committed a sin. I cannot prevent myself complaining against you to the master. Young monk looked at the older monk. What the heck you are talking about? I left the young girl at the bank of a river, and you are still carrying that girl in your mind? Do you understand? That is the attitude we need to change. We will not find the similar situations, conditions, relations in the world. We should be ready to drop and dissolve whatever we have done today until now, that is the past. But it can only happen if we understand what is detachment, what is dispassion. We have to use the intellect. We have to instantly analyze, observe with awareness, and we should change the entire state of the mind. That is the second step. We should know how we should think, speak, and act in our daily life. That is the part of the karma yoga with the proper right and proper attitude inside in every situation and condition. We should be in peace and the joy before, during, and after the action, the way the young monk did. Young monk forget, cross the river and okay. It's an act of the kindness. When you perform an act of kindness, you do it and you forget. But if you continue to carry those impressions, even of the kindness, it becomes sin. How? How to do it? By thinking, speaking, and acting. That is what the step two is. So that brings us to an understanding that are we thinking unconsciously, habitually? Do we carry any event or a situation or a person in our mind the way the older monk did for a longer period? The moment you keep those impressions for a longer period in the mind, it will create attachment or detachment. It will create a like or dislike. It will create a hatred and a reaction. Is it worth keeping those memories in our mind? Whether it is an act of pleasure or whether it is an act of the pain. You're not getting it. We understood in the first step about the self knowledge. What exactly is the real self? Real self is of the nature of pure consciousness, permanent peace, happiness, love, truth, and wisdom. And it cannot be changed because the real self is not changing. Because if it is not changing, it will remain the same. And the second step is how to think, speak, and act. How to act in our daily life, in different situations, relations, people, free from the conflict and confusion and anxiety and duality and struggle and the suffering. So, first thing that if I do not forget the nature of the real self, simply you don't forget, even you have to reach to that state. You simply think. There is no reason to be anxiety in this situation or a reaction in this situation because I'm of the nature of the real self. I'm of the nature of the real self. Very important point. All we are known by our actions. We are known by our actions. Every action has a specific behavior and attitude. So every action, because we are known by our actions in daily life, I may be having an extreme kindness towards a people, towards a person, but my behavior and attitude has an arrogance. Will you say, is that action right? So every action has two factors, two aspects, the inner attitude, inner state of the mind, and outer expression. So no, now they both are related. Can you say to someone by shouting, I love you? It doesn't make any sense. Do you see? It doesn't make any sense in life. I love you. I care you. So now the inner mental state and the outer expression matches. Now I've been taking care of you for so long and you don't listen to me. So my inner attitude is already full of rage, anger, and hesitation and reaction, as if I am doing a favor to someone, and that is why I get agitated. That is the way the society works, but that is not the way the Eastern wisdom works. The Eastern wisdom says you have to take care of the inner mental attitude all the time. Inner mental state, if it is full of the stress, anxiety, reaction, then we cannot control the same kind of behavior and the expression outside. What we are learning? We are learning the second step, how to think, speak, and act in our daily life. Outer expression may be very good, calm, according to the society, but we are burning inside. And we are anxious inside. We have a disliking inside. Do you see that? Are you very much clear? Will you remain aware from today, from this moment? So outer expression and the inner mental state, if they do not align, it results into hypocrisy. Hypocrisy causes the duality, anxiety, of strong likes and dislikes, and then attachment and detachment, and then we start suffering. And that is the major cause of all our anxiety, duality, conflict, stress, and reaction. Why? There is a very small element which is known as a ego. Ego takes advantages of the inner mental state, and that ego starts living in the conflict and confusion, causes fear. Is ego the problem? Let us see. First is ego lives, breathes on attachment and detachment, likes and dislikes. Ego lives on the anxiety, on the reaction, on the past impression. So, what is going to happen? Our inner mental state will be dictated by the ego. So, we think, speak, and act out of the ego in the background, supported by the strong likes and dislikes, anxiety, duality, and a conflict. And that is what our master says, it is an unripe ego. We cannot live without ego. But whether you say unripe ego or the impure ego, we should live with the pure ego. Ripe ego. So are you clear? When we are working, thinking, speaking, and acting out of the unripe or impure ego, that impure ego is always supported by the stress and suffering, likes and dislikes, duality and a conflict. Then my outer expression will also be negative. Even I try hard to keep myself calm. Do you know that we talk about there is a calm before the storm? There's a total silence before the storm. That is the state, and that is what non-seeker does. But it doesn't mean that when we are treading the path, we also commit mistakes. When we commit these mistakes, we should be aware that we should correct it instantly. With that ego, the mind says, I cannot change. But while listening and learning, reflecting consciously on what the lesson says, I said two things. What happens to the mind when the ego is unripe ego lives, thinks, speaks, and acts? That ego, that mind says, I cannot change. In the midst of that idea and understanding, ignorance that I cannot change, you are listening and learning. And then you contemplate and reflect. What happens? Your mind becomes, it melts, it loosens its hold. And then the intellect says, I know I'm helpless to change, and I need that state of helplessness so that my intellect can gather and accumulate and settle that knowledge in the mind. That is what we are doing. That becomes a part of the second step. I told you, complete knowledge, no problem. Complete ignorance, no, complete ignorance, both are bliss. Complete ignorance is bliss because I don't know anything. So I'm in bliss. And complete knowledge, I'm in bliss. Incomplete knowledge is ignorance. Incomplete ignorance is not a problem. Incomplete knowledge is the problem. No, no, but I have heard you many a times. You know that knowledge has yet to settle in your mind. That is what I'm saying. Incomplete knowledge. Now, how can you say incomplete knowledge is the source of the joy and no, is the source of the stress and the suffering? Conscious being is the source of love and the joy. Because when I'm conscious, then I know that you love me or you hate me. Clear? So I have to be conscious to know whether I'm living, thinking, and speaking out of love. I may say that I love this mouse. Does the mouse also say that I love you? It doesn't say that. It cannot say that. Why? It is unconscious. It is matter. It is inert. Anything that is inert cannot say, cannot know itself, and cannot know anyone else. No, no, but how it is related to what you are talking about, that may be your next question. So when you see any person, what do you mean? Do you see the consciousness? No, I see the body and the gestures. But body is a matter. So why should I get carried away by the physical expressions? No, it comes from the mind. So mind is also a matter. What it, what a deal. You need not to worry about it. So the entire world outside is nothing but the material world that causes the misconception. So I accept those, my mind accepts those misconceptions. Why? Because I'm already having a problem of emotional dependence, attachment, and detachment. So they both combine together. Result anxiety, duality, conflict, problem, pain, stress, suffering, fear. I told you in the very beginning that whether the outer situations and the mental condition dictates over me problem. They do not dictate over me because I understand. I have a knowledge that nothing outside can be the source of pain, pleasure, or peace and happiness. Unclear? Do I perform all the actions with incomplete knowledge? No. You have a nurse to go to the restroom, you go to the restroom and come back, there is hardly any impression left. You feel fresh and done. So ego seems to be absent there. Attachment and detachment are absent there. That is your duty, call of the nature, and you go there and get out. You are hungry, you eat your food. No, but where comes the problem? Sometimes when I eat food and then I get stressed. Why? Because that very act has an element of likes and dislikes, attachment and detachment. So now I have an attitude while eating the food that eat is to live. No, live, eat is to live. I eat only for living. I do not eat for likes and dislikes. I do not eat based on the attachment and detachment. Your attitude has changed. So what happens? The food that you like, it is served on the table. You eat it. And if other food is served, still you eat it. How? You eat with the love and care. Why? You know that eating is for survival. No, eating is not for likes and dislikes. If you get the food that you like, wonderful. Choose that. Now apply the same principle. If your son respects you, adores you, takes care of you, very good. If not, still it is very good. Why? You are not obsessed with the seeking peace and happiness and love from the person and from your son. So you don't allow the mind to dictate over you. When you don't allow the mind to dictate over you, you are free from that act. And that act is known as karma yoga. So what happens by doing the karma yoga? The karma yoga purifies your mind. Understand in a different way the difference between karma and the karma. The karma, when you simply perform the action guided by the inner negative attitude or inner attitude of likes and dislikes, of emotional dependence, what happens? That karma, that action makes you a consumer of the world. You know the consumer? Consumer mind means I take everything for granted, for my utility. Say, for example, your friend comes, your mind says friend is a consumer internally, unconsciously. And then you are waiting whether your friend respects, appreciates, praises you or not. If it is so, if he or she or anyone praises you and appreciates you, you are full of the pleasure, which is short term. And if they criticize you, you are already falling into incomplete knowledge, incomplete ignorance, carry the misconceptions. Do you carry any impression of your restroom once you return from it? No. Simple example. So when you are doing karma yoga, you are a contributor, you connect consciously, for example, to your son, daughter, friend, etc., etc. You're a contributor. How do you contribute? You pass on the kindness, love, and wisdom. You're not concerned what they say to you. You keep it outside. Is it possible? 100% possible. How it is possible? Look at the orange tree nowadays. They are a contributor. They are not a consumer. Do you want to know more? Yes. Does the air that we breathe 24 by 7, even during deep sleep, does that air send us the bill? Ah, you have used me so much. They are contributor without any expectations. You're talking to someone, don't expect peace and happiness and love from them. You contribute, you connect to them, you be grateful. See the difference between that a seeker is doing the karma yoga. He is a connector, he is a contributor, he is grateful. Non-seeker does karma, and that lives in the fancy world with all the wrong notions and the misconceptions that claims everyone sends me invisible text messages and the emails to get into the stress. So I created a sense of ignorance in my own mind. Expectation of praise and appreciation Behind the praise and appreciation of that expectation contains the element of anxiety, duality, and attachment. You drop that expectation, you are already free. You're already free from the fear. So, for every action, your desire to think, speak, and act is to be happy. That is karma yoga. And a non-seeker's desire to speak, think, and act in a way to is full of expectations. That causes the entire problem. We don't have an option not to act. Life is action. We have to talk. We have to speak. We have to act. So when we think, speak, and act, it's a contributor, being grateful that outer situations, whether favorable or unfavorable, I have dropped all the expectations and I'm contributing, connecting to the people, real life situations all the time. And that will help you to remain calm before, during, and after the action. That is the essence of living and acting, thinking and speaking in the world. Whether I say non-seeker does the karma, he is a consumer. Consumer has an element of obsession, deep expectation. Consumer is carried away by strong likes and dislikes. You are doing a karma yoga. Karma yoga, you think, speak, and act to contribute, to be grateful, minus all the expectations. Ego is absent. Do you have an ego going to the restroom? Do you have an ego to drinking a cup of glass of water? Do you have an ego watching the TV? No. That is connecting. That is contributing. So that inner attitude, guided by the duality and a conflict, attachment and detachment, expresses itself by ego. What is that ego? Unripe ego, impure ego. Even the impressions are there. You are always welcoming in your thought, speech, and action because you don't have any expectation from the other. You are living your life. Anyone comes, your son comes, daughter comes, or anyone comes, hey, how are you? Welcome. But keep that inner attitude free from the unripe ego you are free from. You can never have anxiety and a fear. Ego does it. I explained you in many ways. The non-seeker has that ego who does only karma out of the ego, dictated by the past impressions of likes and dislikes, having full of expectations. That is the way we need to think. We need to change the way we think. All our teachers and the great masters, including the Jesus, they moved into the world as a contributor. And that is why they celebrated their life all the time, 24 by 7. And in our life, the celebration comes and goes. The very essence of Step number two is my attitude inside the mind before I think, speak, and act. So I feel that attitude that let me connect to this guy, this girl, this relation to connect, contribute. So when you connect and contribute, you start with the peace and the calmness. You continue to live in the state of the peace and the calm. And after the guy left, you are left with the peace. And a non seeker, the moment anyone comes, so no, but I don't have an attitude that I see myself. Say, for example, when the son, friend, and relation knocks the door, you see and you say that. So when you are not thinking what attitude it should be, what happens? The past attitude, past impressions, they are already present in the mind. They trigger you to expect. Hey, don't don't criticize me today. If you don't, then I will be happy. If you criticize and react, then I will be unhappy. You have already created an expectation, even you claim that you are not thinking. So anytime you enter into the world, you keep on thinking. You start thinking, now I'm going to meet this person. I will think, speak, and act in peace and happiness, whatever the situation be. So you are not allowing the outer situation, condition, relations to dictate over you, resulting into anxiety and fear. Now there is no anxiety and fear. Every time, every moment, in every situation, your mind says that I'm ready to connect, contribute, and be grateful to the existence who brought this favorable situation, who created this unfavorable situation to maintain my calm in the peace. Then what happens? How cruel, how negative the person is. You are not affected. Karma in the Karma Yuga. Karma is simply the action you claim that you are doing without thinking. But what happens? We already have many years of past impressions. They trigger the mind the moment you see. Say, pick up the two person, your mom and dad, or your son and the daughter, or any two person, and then wait, keep looking in your mind. Your mind will trigger, I like him or I don't like him. It isn't. By default, it happens. We have to change the default setting of the life. Anytime, the moment you wake up in the morning, I'm alive because of the existence constantly sends me the air and the space and the water without sending any bill to me. Now you look at the human with whatever the relations that you have. I'm grateful to the existence who offered me an opportunity to live with that person without any expectation. Do you have any expectation from the pets that you have? That is why you are happy with the pets and pets are happy with you. I'm connecting, contributing, and celebrating my life with a person, with a situation, with a condition, in relationship, all our actions, actions of a seeker, action of a seeker is committed to increase peace and calm by performing an action. We'll continue to understand where is the difference between the karma, simply the action by the non-seeker, and action by the seeker. Action by the seeker is known as karma yoga. Yoga has the inner mental attitude, and then you perform an action. You're doing simply karma. By default, the past impression returns. Step one was understanding clearly the very nature of the real self that is not changing, that is all pervading, that is of the nature of peace and happiness. That is blocked by the impurities of the mind caused by the incomplete understanding of the real self. So here's the real self, it is blocked by this impurity, and now you perform the action. That action is guided and dictated by the lot of expectations in the world, and that causes anxiety, fear, duality, conflict, etc. Are you getting it or not? Be very clear. Sit sometime, couple of minutes, maybe 5 minutes on a lazy chair at your home every day with eyes closed and then check. Is the mind supports that attachment and detachment? If the mind supports that expectations from the world outside, you will always be suffering, anxious, fear, etc. But at that moment, you start thinking, I'm going to think, speak, and act in the world outside, in relations and situations to connect and contribute, and you see the life changes. It's a long journey in that way because we have to categorize the different types of the karma. The more we understand the action and the intent and the motivation behind the action, the life will change. In the next lesson, what is karma and what is karma yoga? We will understand it deeply and clearly. We'll also understand what actions we must do in life to change the way we think, speak, and act. That is totally free from anxiety, duality. What are the prohibited actions in life? And what to do when we commit a mistake? What to do when we commit a mistake? Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.